So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us on our webinar this morning. I appreciate that it's a fairly big day of announcements, and for you taking your time out, not only of a busy time, but also with some major announcements happening from the government with our autumn statement. We do still appreciate the time that you've taken. So thank you very much indeed. So my name is Angus Gregory, and CEO of Biomni, and I'll do a little bit of an introduction, but I think I'll just go onto the agenda quickly because one of the key things here is we've been working with Ian McClintock at Charity Excellence and have done recently a survey. So I'm going to let Ian talk about the state of play and introduce a number of topics and talk about those that will talk really to yourselves in particular on that. And then the rest of the agenda will be a little bit about chatbots, but more importantly, how we think that they can support yourselves and more importantly, your beneficiaries. And also the kind of changing times of communication and how knowledge is playing into that. So we at Biomni are working very closely in this area of communication and knowledge management and access to knowledge. So we'd like to share some of that with you. And then what we feel might be useful for yourselves within the charity sector is we've introduced what we call in Charity Bot, not very imaginatively called, but we feel it's something that maybe could help your organizations to help you with delivering services to your beneficiaries, but also potentially to your staff as well. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Ian. And Ian, just let me know when you want to move on to the next slide, and I'll click that for you.
Hi, I'm Ian from Charity Excellence. If you haven't bumped into us before, we run a completely free digital platform. We've got 36,000 members now, and basically it's a one-stop shop that finds free stuff. I'm Scottish, it's an ethnic thing. And this is Mini Me, the Charity Excellence tech bunny, for those of you who have never met him. Just coming along for the ride in the snacks. But talking about, contacting charities, and I know it's really busy for you guys, and people will say, well, it's admin. But actually, the question is, what happens about phone calls you don't answer? And I've got a couple of wee examples. I called a community foundation and tried to give them £40,000 that someone wanted to donate. And I went round the chief exec, fundraising director, fundraising team, reception, and I just went round in circles. I couldn't get any answers. I tried again, and then I went and gave it to someone else. And on another occasion, I was called by a director from a global fintech who wanted to help a food bank in London. It took me an entire afternoon to get through to a food bank to tell them that they'd got this fantastic opportunity. So just being aware that we can miss things. But what can you do to manage it? Well, obviously, Charity Bot is a plan to do that really, really, really well. But it actually works in a very sensible way. I mean, when I was in my last chief exec role, we had the same issues. We'd endless information, emails and phone calls. We were working in domestic violence and poverty and drugs and things. And so what we did is I got the team together and I got them to write down the questions that got asked again and again and again and again. And about 30% of the questions were really easy to answer, but just came in endlessly and had these calls. So what we did is we wrote all the questions down we got all the time. We wrote down the answer to each of those. In case anything was a bit more complicated than that, we had the name and appointment of the person to speak to, and we had a volunteer who worked from home, logged in every morning, went into the info email and just cleared all the emails out or forwarded them on, and it saved us an absolute age. It was brilliant. And so that is, there are ways to manage this and get that workload down. So in essence, Charity Bot just does that in a far more powerful way. The autumn statements this afternoon, it's going to be better than the mini budget, which is good news. The tax breaks have gone. Inevitably, there are going to be tax increases across the board and budget cuts, but there is hope. With luck, welfare and pension increases might not be capped, and that would protect the vulnerable and impact on the level of demand we get. Possible cuts to the MOD budget, although they'll be fighting about that. Major infrastructure projects like HS2. I mean, cutting's not good news, but it would mean there was less immediate impact on the sector. That's one way. I think he's going to have to go for company windfall taxes for the energy companies, and that will help buy it out a wee bit. And if hopefully there may be some more energy support for families and businesses that will help our beneficiaries and also help charities. But it isn't going to be good. There's no question about that. Could you click next?
Certainly.
I'm awful. I tend to lapse into things like predictive modeling and things, but essentially, Charity Excellence has got a huge data store of about 350,000 data points, including tracking things like sector resilience and crisis management and things like that. And this is a graph of the data plot. And you can see resilience in the sector. That is how well we're able to survive. And you can see this great big dip in COVID. Actually, we recovered far more quickly than the epidemic waned. And very few charities actually became permanently insolvent, although a lot closed temporarily. And on the right-hand side, what we've done is we've taken the key drivers around resilience and modeled them, and then mapped the profile of COVID, and then we're tying the actual data as it appears into here. And what you can see, it's a lot deeper and it lasts a lot longer. This is not like COVID. If you could click next. And the reason is, why is it not like COVID? Oh, if you could give me the next slide.
Yeah, it's coming, sorry.
So the first one is grant funding. Nobody knows for sure, but we reckon that the COVID funding pumped in, including furlough and everything else, was about 5 billion. I can't see how they can do that again. And I can see no evidence of it happening. There have been some decent sized funds come out, people like Aviva, there's the big energy fund came out, the lottery's doing something, but there's nothing on the scale. We will not see that funding support in the way we did during COVID. Donations, in times of a downturn, people are simply less able to give. Actually, we can expect downturn in all income streams, except legacies and potentially retail. But we get a double whammy on that. Inflation, I think it peaked today at over 11%, and that's effectively eating into the real value of donations. So the £10 you get today is not going to be worth £10 in 6 months' time. Inflation should peak soon and then fall in the new year. But what that will mean is the rate of decline in the real value will reduce. It's not going to reverse. So the funding you are able to raise will not buy as much as it can now. And one I haven't really seen is the public sector. It's not really that well known, but 50% of sector income is contracts. And that's mainly the larger charities, and some of them are very reliant on it, but there is very, very little in the way of overheads in those contracts. There are big budget cuts coming. There is no question about that. If the public sector response is to take things in-house or try and cut the contracts, then that could be real difficulty for some of the larger charities. And of course, cost. It's increasing cost across the board, but particularly in energy. And so who will that hit? Grant funding will hit all of us. Donations will hit all of us. The public sector cuts, I reckon, will hit the larger charities, particularly in places like social care. Cost will hit everyone, but it will be more the sort of medium to larger charities because they tend to have more in the way of buildings. And there is an issue around demand driven by poverty. Clearly, you can see from the Fair Share report and things that the food banks are getting pretty close to breaking point. Debt charities, but there are other ones, for example, animal charities, with people no longer able to care for their pets are being overwhelmed. So that's going up, and it is likely to continue to do so. And finally, staffing. Recruitment and retention is already challenging, And as we move into Q1 of 2023, we may begin to see insolvencies and more redundancies as people try to reduce costs. So we've got more demand and we've got less people to do that with. The staffing issues will be more likely again to hit the larger charities, because something like 90% of charities are volunteer run. So that is really a picture. That's what's driving it. The reason it's a toxic cocktail is it is not just a single issue around funding and cost. There are other damaging issues in there. And that's me. And at that point, increasing demand and staffing, just the perfect time to hand over to Gus. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. That's very insightful. It's certainly an interesting, well, somewhat depressing state of play. And certainly, we also like to thank everybody that participated in the survey that we did with Charity Excellence recently. I know time is of, very important to everybody. We don't have a lot of it, so we do appreciate the time that you put into that to give us a good insight into some of the challenges that you're facing. So, I mean, clearly, what we're seeing here is, and I heard this sort of mentioned yesterday, really was an unfortunate perfect storm that we're facing. Rising costs, failing income, huge increase in the demands of your services in terms of within the charity sector. So it's kind of that unfortunate perfect storm where everything's coming together at the same time, not necessarily in the positive way. And clearly, our survey that we did recently. That sort of highlight. We've got some stats here that sort of point out there's a lot of information in there that we're still going through, but we've pulled out some of the key things, and clearly the numbers are very high there. So, for those of you that did fill that out, I guess you can see you're in good company. That everybody is feeling the same pains that you are in these areas as well. But I think some of the things I'd like to point out within these stats that sort of are driving us as to how we can potentially help in this area is things around the workload. Your staff, your volunteers, I mean, Ian's already just highlighted that as well, is that the demands on them are increasing all the time. A huge number there, 90% expect an increase in workload for staff and volunteers. And of course, if that's also on a shrinking numbers as well, that can only get worse as time goes by. The other thing there is the stress for the staff that you have and your volunteers. How do you keep them going? How do you motivate them, etc. And of course, driving all of that is that increase in phone calls, inquiries, whether they're email or however they come in. It's just adding to that. People are, when they reach out and contact people, they're sort of expecting quick answers and being able to get through. And Ian, you were highlighting that from a benefits perspective of trying to get hold of somebody to give good news. If that's on the other side where you're a beneficiary trying to get through and get services, that can only be a bad thing as well. How do you keep that momentum going using your currently already stressed staff and resources that you have? So of course, in that environment, sometimes technology can help. Clearly it's not the only solution, but can help. There are ways that maybe technology can help you get through these challenging times. So we as Biomni, we're very involved in the sort of self-service of people requesting things, and chatbots are things that we quite involved with. And what are chatbots? So let me just kind of maybe just set the scene, and so we're all talking about the same thing and understand the same thing. So we probably all use chatbots in our personal lives, but from our perspective, what they are doing, they've evolved a lot over the last couple of years and continually evolve incredibly quickly as we're seeing. But they give you access to information, and they help automate those conversations that people want to have. They can be text-based, they can be voice-based, as we know with our own personal type environments at home. But what they do is they allow you to chat like you would, with your friends on WhatsApp, with some type of application behind the scenes. So people are very familiar with those environments, and it lets people continue that conversational like approach using familiar technology that they're already using. But one of the key aspects that's coming into these areas now is this ability to extract information from the phrase that people have typed in. So when you type something into WhatsApp, it can understand that and extract information that can make the conversation flow, excuse me, easier further down the line. It's a bit like us having a conversation, whether it's on a phone or via an email or a text message. We understand the conversation and we can say, oh, right, I see you want to travel from London to Edinburgh. Okay, I know London is your starting point, Edinburgh is your destination. It's that sort of thing that you're able to do now. They're generally used to solve specific problems, but increasingly we're seeing the expansion of the problems that they solve. So a single solution is now starting to expand out to do far more things for the person using it. So they aren't so specific anymore that where they used to be, but they are being expanded out more and more. Typically, I mean, this is the typical use case that commonly applied to the customer service. So we're all probably very familiar with using them in our, shopping environments or dealing with our utilities companies, etc. That's typically where they use the customer service side of things. And of course, they're widely used in organizations. And here's some examples. Probably many of you have used some of these already, but they are allowing you to engage with an organization to either question, ask, get a service or do something, or generally ask questions of them, and it allows you to interact with them. Most organizations are using these solutions to deflect phone calls, really. And deflect phone calls, really, it's probably the wrong term, I guess, in some respects, in that what it means is it allows people to, we're all busy, making those phone calls, getting through the process can be quite tiresome sometimes. So the ability to get answers quickly without having to make that phone call, you could be multitasking and doing multiple things at the same time, but still getting the answer that you want. So that's often the use case. Companies use these to clearly, reduce the workload for the people dealing with those phone calls and be able to give a better service when you do get through. But it's also those repeatable tasks. So, this is something that gets asked all the time and people want to do the same thing. Chatbots are great at doing that. Also, I've got here customer and employee service. Most people that experience chatbots do so as a customer of an organization, but increasingly they're becoming used more and more in the employee within an organization. So this is where we as Biomni are involved mostly, is in providing a solution to organizations to provide a better service to their employees. So we feel that experience that we bring to that environment could be very easily and be very beneficial to your organizations in terms of your beneficiaries. So we feel that's something that we can bring a lot of value to. Again, complementing customer-facing staff, Ian's already highlighted that very well, is how can we provide a better service to the people that are providing a service to our customers, our beneficiaries, whichever market you're in. But it's generally that's where they're aiming the chatbots at, is to help people deal with a better customer-facing service and complement those staff. So effectively helping them do more with what resources they have already. And more we see this aligning with the way that people communicate today. So it's not so much of a here's a website, click on this, do that. It's much more about communication, conversations, really, and having how we communicate with each other is driving the use of chatbots within organizations and how they deliver that. So this is something we're seeing more and more of. We speak less on the phone. We're using far more text messaging within our personal lives, engaging with organizations, whether that be our bank, whether it be our, delivery of Amazon, whatever it might be. We use these text messaging services far more now, and that's increasing. It's getting more and more and more. We also are far more comfortable. We see a lot of this happening now when people are far more comfortable looking to self-serve their problems. In other words, they go and look for the solution themselves, whether that they go and Google that, they go onto forums, they ask questions within those environments before they go and necessarily pick up the phone and speak to somebody to get that done. So the ability to ask these questions, get access to knowledge quickly and easily, using the conversational way of how we communicate is becoming more and more predominant within the way that we work, etc. And that's just increasing. It's getting more and more. The millennials obviously are far more comfortable with doing this text messaging than they are even doing emails. They prefer to do a text message than they would an email, let alone pick up the phone and speak to somebody. So that's just getting more and more predominant of the way that we communicate. And of course, people are having to align with that so that they can stay relevant. They can keep abreast of their services and align with the way that their consumers of their service want to actually communicate and get engaged. So this is one thing. How many times have we asked? I mean, Ian, you highlighted this again at the beginning and said, how many times you ask the same question? And in organizations, that's often by the same people. Time and time again, the same question gets asked. So chatbots are a great way to start with solving that problem. Being able to say, we constantly get asked these questions. These are the answers that we give out. Let people just ask them in the way that they would typically ask, using natural language, conversation type speak that they want to go and get the answer to those questions. So frequently asked questions is a great place to start with this. So they're structured, they're repeatedly asked constantly. That's why often people have them on their website. They certainly provide your audience, your beneficiaries, with information that they seek. Most websites will have an FAQ somewhere within that website. However, they're often buried, so sometimes they're difficult to find. They're not often utilized a lot. So there's a lot of information in there, but not necessarily accessed. And largely that's because the way that people get to them, the search criteria often has to be quite specific to get to the question. And so people then will often say, well, I've been to the FAQ site, searched on something, I couldn't find it, so I'll pick up the phone instead. And of course, you've already got somebody going, well, I've tried to find the information. You're already sort of frustrated, and then they get through on the phone and then they ask the question maybe in a more aggressive way, etc. So we see that happening a lot. So this is a great place to start with engaging a chatbot type solution to offer those frequently asked questions to your audience, to your beneficiaries, and let them use their natural language. Let them ask the questions in the way that they would if they were speaking to you on the phone. And these solutions enable that to happen. So the way that I might ask a question could be very different to the way that Ian asked the same question, but it still ultimately goes to the same answer. And the solutions nowadays enable that to happen. It enables you to have answers that are searched for very differently using natural language understanding to be able to find that information very quickly. And more importantly, over time, that gets better and better. So the more it gets used, the more it understands how those questions are being asked. And you could put in alternate phrasing and the way that somebody might ask this question might be this way or might be that way. So again, it gives you better analysis of those FAQs to improve them, to make sure that they are used accurately. And of course, that information can be found quickly and easily by the people searching for it. So this is why we've introduced CharityBot. We think this is a great place to start by providing that information. There's a lot more that it can do, and I'll touch on that in a second. But what is it, and how can it help you? So we're bringing our solution. It's going to be a non-technical solution. So again, the first thing I want to reiterate: this isn't about providing you a nice technical solution. It's providing you a solution that you can literally get up and running extremely quickly. We will do all the hard work for you. All that you're required to do is literally fill out the FAQ template. We'll already provide you with either a Word document or a spreadsheet, whichever you prefer. We'll pre-populate that with typical questions that we always see on FAQs, for instance. You can amend those, you could add to them, etc. And we'll just constantly keep that updated for you. So the more questions you get, the more you want to change them, you just change the spreadsheet or the Word document, and we can we'll take care of that for you. It allows you to have forms in there to capture information. So it'll allow you to have, in that conversation, you could ask questions or put up a form for them to fill out, and then that gathers information for maybe later to pass into your system or send an email out, whatever it might be. But also enabled to, we were just actually discussing with Ian earlier about this, is that the conversational flows, as we call them, basically allowing you to create conversations with your beneficiaries in the tone that you would like to have with them. So it can be very, it doesn't have to be formal. You could adopt the style of language that you want to have with them, and we'll create that. We'll help you put that across into your conversation. So when they're asking questions, it's coming back with an appropriate response using the language that you would typically use if you were speaking to them directly on a telephone, etc. Also, as you can see on that screen there, we can embed it in your website. So click a little button at the bottom on your website, up pops a little box, ask those questions, fill out forms, and so on. All there directly within your website. Again, we'll handle that with you. You don't have to worry about that side of it. Personalize it, of course, that becomes. But you get reports, you'll be able to then improve it. But also take advantage, we provide all the support and services as part of this. It's not that you have to get additional resources or have technical people. We'll do all that for you. And of course, it's a platform that you can take advantage of as much as you wish. So there are advanced features if you require. We can talk to you about those if you're interested. But that could then advance you further down the line with additional functionality that may be of benefit to your organization. So the key thing here is about helping you deflect those phone calls and ensuring that those people that are seeking information are getting it quickly, accurately, and more importantly, you can improve it over time. So, those satisfaction levels, whether it be your internal members of staff, volunteers, etc., hopefully they can improve because they're not being burdened by these repetitive questions and answers. And of course, your beneficiaries, people that are wanting to contact you, get a better service. And of course, when they do need to call, hopefully the phone lines aren't being bogged down with lots of other people ringing through with lots of other, asking these other simple bits of information. Of course, with this solution, you get the ability to get further insights as to what questions are being asked, how they're asking those questions, how can I improve my FAQs. One of the things that we've found over the years with websites that do have FAQs, it's very difficult to get analysis as to how many times has somebody searched for that bit of knowledge or that FAQ, or did they find the right answer, those sorts of things. And what these solutions allow you to do is to continually improve that and align your information that you're providing out to your beneficiaries to be far more accurate and be able to found far quicker and easier by tweaking it, changing it constantly. So we can give you that information back so that you can come back and go, oh, I see, our people are asking this question. We don't have an answer, or the answer that we're giving is not right. So we need to enhance and change that information. So make it very easy to do that. The other side of this, actually, this is one thing that's been sort of as a side effect of having this capability, is the ability to have questions asked that may be sensitive, that people wouldn't necessarily ring up somebody and say, I need to ask this question. So those potentially sensitive information, or, I need information about this, maybe somebody wouldn't necessarily do. But because it's kind of anonymous, they tend to go, okay, well, I can ask this, or maybe it's difficult for them to pick up a phone and ask it in an environment where it could be, you know, dangerous for them or so forth. So the ability to ask those types of questions and respect that sensitivity of your beneficiaries could be an important factor as well. The other one that really got us thinking along the lines of this area was raising awareness of your services via sort of campaigns, being able to push out a campaign against it on something very specific, maybe within your organization, to potential beneficiaries or new ones or existing ones, and get their insights into that. And this is something that we did that's happened with us. And this is a personal experience that I went through within our organization. There was this WhatsApp messaging that was being forwarded around to many people as prostate cancer awareness. And it went through a lot of people. And in fact, my colleague Kesh actually forwarded it on to me. And it came up with this little, as you can see here on the right-hand side, this sort of chatbot that allowed me to go online and answer a bunch of questions, go through a conversation with them. How old are you, etc., as you can see. And clearly what it was doing, it was getting information about me, but also what it was doing, it was giving information to me about, you know, this is, you should check for this, do that. And actually on the back of that, I made sure I went off and after 3 years, made sure 3 years overdue, in fact, that I need to go and have a prostate check. And what that did is it meant that I'm now on their radar. I get emails from them now. I've made sure that I've gone and got my check, etc. So that was just another way of these kind of benefits. So it might be a very specific campaign that you want to run and say, we need to ensure that people understand this bit of information. So let's actually run a campaign quickly. We want to do that on social media. We want to put it out on WhatsApp or put it out on Facebook channels, whatever it might be. But they can point back to your website to go to this specific set of questions and answers and, you know, run through a flow, run through a conversation, capturing information that you can then use internally to ensure that you've updated information or you're engaging with new people. That can be done very quickly, very cheaply, and with no impact on yourselves in doing that.
You can also use it for fundraising.
Exactly.
So you get, you know, that £40,000 was a bit extreme, but how do I make a donation when people can't find it on your site? Or would you like to go to the Christmas fair? Or would you like to find out more about how you could support us? Click this link, and you could put that into every question.
Very good point, Ian. You know, that's exactly the sort of thing. You know, I'm sure people on the call here will be thinking lots of other examples of what could be possible with that. And it's really just a case of building up a set of questions and answers. It's you know, no more complicated than filling out, say, you know, ask this question, I want this response, those sorts of things. I'm going to give this bit of information, and we'll do the rest for you, and you know, help you build that and get that out. So it gives you a lot of good insights, and you can go viral with those as much as you wish. So talking about all of this, you know, you think, well, this sounds expensive. So what we've decided to do is really take this from our platform, our Tenjin platform, which is our Tenjin chatbot virtual assistant, and we've created a specific edition for the charity sector. So this means that there's no commitment from yourselves. It's paid for monthly, so you know, you're not tied in for years or months or whatever. You just decide how much you want to use it for. We do all the services included, so setup, data import, periodic changes. I've already mentioned the fact that what we will do is provide you with a spreadsheet or a Word document, whichever you prefer, or we could go to your website and, you know, import the FAQs that you've already got. But what you then get is just the ability to fill out the additional ones that you would like to add in, and then that just continually gets updated as and when you wish. So we really provide a helping hand. It's like a blueprint process that we give you, and you don't have to have any more technical expertise in this area at all. It's somebody just needs to know how to fill out those questions and answers. Clearly, we've got a support team here that's very experienced in this area. They will provide assistance, you know, to yourselves. We will provide webinars that you can attend to do additional training, learn more if you wish, or learn how to do more things, how to do that campaign that we were just talking about. But we'll handhold you all the way as much as you wish. And of course, as I mentioned before, options to expand should you wish to take that further, because there's a lot more things that could be done. But always, let's just start nice and simple. Get operational with these FAQs, maybe some simple forms, etc. And then you can get that onto your website. And then as you see fit in the future, or you need to do more, there is that ability to take on more if you wish. Or if you say, we've got a very specific campaign for this next month, we can handhold you in that, do some specific things if you need. For example, that we have the capability to integrate with voice. Maybe you want to have somebody connect back via a telephone, or get a call back, or you want to do a WhatsApp campaign, or somebody wants to send a text message in. So we've got all these capabilities should you wish, but they're not necessary on day one. That you can take advantage of as you see fit, as you grow. So from our point of view, this is my last slide actually. So we will give you, we've got some time for questions if there are any questions. By all means, you can ask those now or come back to us. But should you be interested, all you have to do is contact us via the info@biomni.com, register your interest to join, and we'll do the rest. We'll set you up. Takes a very short amount of time to get you set up, matter of hours, and then we can get you operational. And here, we clearly here we want to help the non-profit sector. We feel that there's a lot of value we can bring into this space, but it's not necessarily about us. We've got another part of our business, which is the bigger part, but this is an important part for us, and we'd like to work more closely. So any of you that do want to join earlier on, we're sort of doing these introductory offers, and very keen to work with you. So thank you very much for your time. If there are any questions, then we'll take those now.
Yeah, hi Gus. It's Cash here. I've got a couple of questions here actually. And please, if you have any questions from the audience, just please use the chat function and type away as we're talking about chatbots if it was appropriate, and we can field those questions to the panel. I've got a couple here already while we get a few more coming through. The first one, we're going to drill you on costs here, I think, Gus. So if you can give a better indication around kind of cost and what the audience can expect from a monthly kind of cost for the for the solution, that would be useful.
Yes, certainly. We're looking at less than £30 a month for the solution. As I said, no commitment, but less than £30 a month.
Okay, that answers that one. And nice and short and sweet as well. Got another question here just come through, which is we really struggle with the volume of phone calls, so this sounds ideal, and basically want to know about the cost again. So yeah, it's kind of around for the base solution. I think we can agree it's around it's sub £30 a month.
Correct.
To get this kind of the entry level charity chatbot solution there as well. One more question.
Have you looked at the fundraising potential around it? Because charity traffic, most charity sites get about 3,000 visitors a month, give it. That's 36,000 people a year. If a significant percentage use the charity bot and you can get a donation ask in as part of that conversation, because actually getting donations through sites, we're getting people to click the donate buttons, or they're not always easy to find, etc., can be quite difficult. But could you do a click here to donate and then bring up the donation page immediately?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking of all those people that phone you up. If you're asking every single one that talks to you whether they would like to make a donation, there has to be some kind of percentage hit rate, and actually that would buy out the cost of having it.
Sure. Yeah, that's something that we can definitely look at. We haven't included it in the scope, I don't think, have we, Gus? But something certainly we can explore for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll certainly do that. Yeah. Okay.
I've got another question just come through, and I've got another one from earlier. So the one we've just been asked is, we've mentioned, how quick the setup is. How long does that actually take to go live? So from a kind of, great, I want to go ahead with this. What can we expect in terms of a lead time to get that up and running?
So the lead time really is how quickly we can get the questions and answers back, from that in that template that we talked about. So it might be a Word document that people would be happier with, or a spreadsheet. So once we get that back, that gets loaded in, takes minutes to get into the system. Then that your bot will be available to be published to your beneficiaries. So the next bit would be adding that to your website. Where do you want it added to? How do you want it to look? And again, the configuration of that, once we're talking to somebody who's administering the website, that could take, again, an hour or two to put that little widget that appears at the bottom right, or wherever you choose to put it, and the avatar, how you want it to look, that will all just appear. That can take a couple of hours. So once we have that information, it's very, very quick to deploy. So we're talking, maybe a couple of days of elapsed time to get all the information between, that you fill out on that spreadsheet or Word document. And in the meantime, we'd be talking to whoever administers the website for you to add this. It's a very simple little bit of text that gets added into your website, and then it'll appear.
Okay, thanks.
And pulling it together is quite easy. I mean, what we did is we sat reception and everybody around the table and just got everyone to come up with the questions. And the vast majority of them were, where's the nearest tube? Can I park? What are your opening hours? There was an awful lot of that. And then we just came up with a great big long list. Reception used it for a week, ticking each one every time they got that kind of call. And at the end of that, it took us about 2 weeks and we had an exact picture of exactly what we needed. And that would be an easy way to set the chatbot up.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Ian. Just another couple of questions quickly before we end up here at some point. So we got here, just if you can elaborate a bit more on the reporting functions, Gus, just around what's included around reporting. Is it stuff like, traffic themes? Is it, all those sort of, what sort of items are there in the reports?
So there's a number of different things. I mean, one of the key things that we will provide back would be, I mentioned before with the FAQs, would be the questions being asked. Sorry, first of all, how many people have visited come to the bot would be one of the first things. Secondly, how many questions are asked, what is the question, and then what the answer was, plus then addition, what happens over time is you get these suggestions that get created, so that you got the ability to say, well, you had a question is, where can I park? But then that over time, the way that people have asked that question might be 3 or 4 different suggested questions to that answer. So we'll be providing those back to say, which one of these would you like to enhance your question and answers with, as well as the volume of people that have visited the bot, etc., and asked those questions. So there's about 5 or 6 different stats that you would get on day one with the reporting.
Okay, great, thanks, Gus. And another one just around, just confirming really that it's basically automation of FAQs is in the base product that we're talking about. We can link it to a live agent. I think that was one of the questions we got here, so we can do that, right? So at the moment we're talking in that kind of base product is very much around servicing up questions and answers, right?
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. The base product is absolutely your questions and answers, and even if you want to have a form in there, we can do that. The linking to live agents, that's one of the things that we could offer. We have the ability, if you would like to have people using a live agent chat capability, so that they could have a conversation with the beneficiary, using that chat language. Again, we can provide that. That's again there. That's all there.
So that's one of those advanced features that you mentioned, right? That we could talk about.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and just another question here about accessibility, really. So, how do we ensure that the bot is accessible, for perhaps disabled or visually impaired, etc.? What sort of things can we do around that?
So the bot will take on the style of your website. So we would make sure that when we apply it to your website, it's using the same styling, and which will be for the accessibility. Clearly, the conversation that you build in there would need to match what you would like as well. So that's something we could take up specifically in terms of making sure any of your requirements are covered in that. Yeah.
And of course, if you know, I would urge, if you've got a specific need around that, just get in touch with us at Biomni, so info@biomni.com, where we can talk around those specific points to ensure that we cover those off. Yeah. And just one last question I think I've got, again, if you any more from the audience, please feel free to add, but just around how onerous a task is it to kind of maintain kind of the data or the FAQs and stuff from a charities perspective?
Well, that's one of the it's a great question, by the way, and I think the key thing that we want to do with this solution is not burden you with that task. So the key thing would be making it easy for that spreadsheet stroke Word document. We felt that providing that mechanism is far easier than saying, oh, come to this website, sign in, do this, and you have to learn a whole new solution. We felt by doing this way, it reduces that burden because you're probably already maintaining FAQs in some form of document already, like a Word or a spreadsheet a document. So we felt if we just did that, that would lessen the burden on you. So it shouldn't increase the burden at all. And obviously, if we feel it is, then we need to know about that, because then we will change our process.
Yeah, and an ongoing maintenance is about zero, really.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The whole solution is actually hosted by us, so it's totally, there's no technical overhead whatsoever. It's merely about making sure the information is relevant, you know, and solving the challenge that you're trying to solve, right? Okay, I think that's all of our questions actually, guys. So appreciate that. Over to you.
No, pleasure. Well, I think, you know, we've got 10 minutes before the allotted time, and I think if there's no further questions, then we could give that time back to everybody for the rest of the day.
Right.
Ian, I'd just like to thank you again for your time and for helping us with the survey to your members, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Brilliant. And I shall get onto the autumn statement and update mine. Let's hope it's some good news for the sector. We could do with that.
We certainly could.
Thank
you very much.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.